As a cinematographer, I'm supposed to be broadly skilled, and I think that I am. My job as I see it is to shoot a bright commercial one day, stylized music video the next, and a moody film after that. But fashion has become a bit of a specialty for me over the years, which is why you see it in so many of my videos. I like to take this type of work that I do and try to tell a product story through that work. Now, Sony has lent me some fabulous new glass, and I thought I would use this opportunity to share with you my thoughts on lensing for fashion. Now, with all of my videos, a few caveats. I can only speak to how I shoot. Now, there is more than one way to shoot fashion, and you may find yourself disagreeing with me, and that's perfectly fine. I can only speak to my experience and the experiences of my fashion photographer colleagues. Also, the notion of what is fashion photography is very much susceptible to trends, so this type of conversation is really a moving target. Just look at how fashion photography has changed over the decades. What's popular now may not be in a decade's time. So the smart fashion photographer or filmmaker will be very aware of the current trends, but also what's considered timeless. A few last distinctions that I think also need to be made. Today, we're talking about fashion, not beauty, and they are often confused. Beauty is about skin, and often skincare products. So generally, most of the photography is done quite close up, with a few exceptions. Fashion, on the other hand, is really about clothing. So we often err on the other side of the framing where wider shots with lots of movement or set design really start to take precedence. Defining what constitutes a fashion photograph is also a bit of a gray area. Certainly anything you see in Vogue, L'Officiel, Marie Claire, etc., well, that's going to be what's considered the height of fashion photography and a direction that I think every aspiring fashion creative should be pursuing. With the proliferation of social media and small upstart digital magazines, well, it can be difficult for the debutante to really navigate what is considered a respectable representation of fashion. But ultimately, if you are able to assemble a great team and get your photos published in magazines with a large subscriber base, then you're likely on the right track. A good start is submitting your work through Caviar, which is an online submission portal. Most, but not all, of the partner magazines are considered reputable examples of modern fashion photography. So with that out of the way, let's jump in. The job that I'm going to use as an example here is a fashion editorial which I recently shot in Toronto. Now, it's a smaller team where my model Noella is also a professional stylist. I don't recommend this as an approach typically, but she was able to handle the two jobs at the same time very well. My other team members were a hair and makeup artist and my photo assistant / gaffer. The goal of this shoot was to photograph at least 3 looks and create a set of photos and a short video for social media. We had in total about 4 hours for this shoot, which seems like a lot of time, but you'd be surprised at how fast that goes. So my plan was to shoot a nostalgic vibe in and around the pool feature, pool house, and some of the greenery on site. Now, I'm certain that you're going to want me to just dive right in and tell you about which lenses I use and why, and I will, but this is also a great time to highlight what makes a great fashion image. It's not the camera, it's not really even the lens. First and foremost, it's the styling. Your biggest asset is your stylist. Next is going to be your model. Now, this is a delicate subject, as in, I'd love to say that a talented photographer can make anyone look good, but that's simply not the case. Certain body types are made for certain types of fashion. What types of clothing and camera angle look good on one person with a round feature may be completely different than someone who is tall with very angular features. So I may not even use the same lenses at all on those two people. Time and experience, in this case, honestly guys, will be your friend. And also visiting websites like fashioneditorials.com, which can help you to see trends and patterns in styling, models, camera framing, etc. And it's a far better resource than Pinterest, in my opinion. So back to the shoot. With me on this shoot, I had 4 lenses, 3 of which I've had here. On the long end was the 90mm macro. The second was the brand new Sony 24-70 G Master 2. And on the wider side, I had the new Sony 16-35G f4, which is really a hybrid photo video lens, but more on this later. And finally, I also had the 12-24 f4, which I actually didn't even really use. So let's first talk about aperture. Now, it's always nice to have a fast prime lens, especially in low light conditions. Though with fashion, I almost never shoot faster than 2.8, and the reason is that I want the whole garment in focus. Razor thin depth of field is something that can be distracting or even difficult for your eye to really resolve the image. So for this reason, zoom lenses are typically your best friend, giving you the speed to really adjust to continually changing movement without worrying too much about being out of focus. So in this particular case, you can probably leave your Speedy 51-2 in the bag for this kind of stuff. The new 24-70 GM2 is such a kick-ass lens. It gives you most of the focal range that you need, and its lighter weight makes it far less fatiguing to shoot with than the previous model. There's also a new smooth tight switch which changes the tension on the zoom ring, prioritizing either faster zooms or more precise ones. The 24-70 is your comfortable focal length. It's always where I like to start off. I like to be up in the model's grill while we work to loosen up. It's easier to get some classic headshots or close-ups without being warmed up first. So I'll knock those off and then I'll get wider. There is such a thing as being too wide, but that has more to do with your location and what you want or don't want to show. A good model will have features that can handle the distortion of an extremely wide lens and still look really great. I try to get as many shots in this 24-70 range as possible. I'll go to a wider lens when I feel the location, the framing and the styling, or the mood calls for it. 24-70 is also just nice and safe because you can get those easily likable shots of a 50mm or a 70mm lens that compresses the frame and isolates your subject. It's good to start with these when you can and get some early, quick wins, buying you more time for experimentation. 24-70 is also your portrait zone. So if you don't do fashion, but instead you just like taking pictures of people, well, this focal length gives you pretty much everything that you're going to need. The new GM2 also sports a very close focus of 1 foot, making it fantastic for close-ups. One additional feature worth mentioning in the new G2 version is that in this lens, it has a rear glass element at the mount. Now, I'm not sure why Sony did this, but my guess is that it keeps the rear element a whole lot cleaner and free of dust, and that it's also much easier to keep clean. This is something I've battled with other zoom lenses as well, and it's really nice to see this resolved with this product. Now, from a video perspective, the new lighter weight makes it much more adaptable to a range of gimbals because you no longer have a notably heavy lens to compensate for. The other handy lens, but more of a beauty or accessories kind of lens, is the 90mm macro G2.8 lens. Macro will always get me some really nice close-ups to focus on textures or accessories that can accompany a set of images. Once we get into the wide, we really have to start to think about our angles. With a good deal of fashion, we're going to be shooting below the eye line or extending limbs to make the clothing more dramatic. We are literally stretching out the clothing with our lens. And with the widest lenses, we have to be aware that some angles will challenge the model. So be prepared to test out every conceivable angle, but also know that depending on the styling and the location, the ultra-wides may not work for you. When I shoot wide, I typically go down to a 16-35. 16 is sort of that limit that doesn't start to fisheye dramatically. Once you're into the fisheye territory, it's a vibe, as they say. The lens starts to become the star of the show and not the subject. So choose when to use it wisely, which is to say, it should be done intentionally to create a mood and not just for the novelty of it. The new 16-35 is a great hybrid lens. f4 is plenty fast for all modern Sony cameras, and the priority here should be clean, edge-to-edge sharpness, with as little barrel distortion as possible. Now, it's not that barrel distortion is inherently bad, it's just less controllable. So if I want to distort the image more, well, I just prefer to do that in post. The 16-35 GF4 has no perceivable distortion for me, making it a hell of a good lens. What's more, this is also a fantastic lens for those who shoot a bit of photo and video. Like the 24-70, it has a beautifully declicked aperture ring on the barrel for smooth and precise exposure. But this is also a unique lens in that it has a built-in servo motor for zooming, allowing you to zoom precisely and smoothly with the lens, the camera, in the case of any Sony FX line of cinema cameras, or via the Imaging Edge app. Now, I did discover though that zooming via the Imaging Edge app seems to be locked in at a very snail's pace zoom. So if anybody knows how to change the zoom speed in the app, please drop a comment in the comment section below. So typically when I'm shooting sub 24mm, I'm intentionally attempting to either lengthen my subject or pull in the environment around us. Whether I'm shooting wide or longer, I tend to shoot lower than the eye line. Again, this only works with models with the right features and the right styling or a very specific pose. shooting low can also have disastrous consequences if not taken with some care. Every subject will be different, so some level of experimentation is required, as well as a willingness to throw away a lot of the effort if nothing works out. With time and experience, you tend to start to get better at knowing when and where to be with a wide lens. It's also very much in fashion right now, especially the extremely wide stuff. So it's a good skill to learn for now. To summarize, my recommendation is to start off with a really good 24-70 lens and then go wider with your next zoom. Lastly, you can add a 90 or 100mm macro for your detail shots, and then also maybe a fisheye for that wild and distorted effect, which, as I said, is kind of having its moment right now. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please subscribe to this channel for more videos like this and comment in the comment section below to feed the hungry algorithm gremlins. Best I could do. That's it for me. For now, I'm out. Peace.